We're starting here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sanjeev Mohta from BNK. On behalf of BNK, welcome you all to another interesting fireside chat. We have with us Chairman and Managing Director of Safari Industries, Mr. Mr. Sudhir Jatia. We also have Mr. Vineet Podar. He's the CFO. Welcome, gentlemen, to this fireside chat, and thank you for giving us your valuable time. Mr. Jatia can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, great. We also have Prerna Jhunjhunwala, who has the secretary for our side. And sir, as I said, what we'll do.
Sorry, I can't hear you. One sec.
Yeah.
Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So as I said, thank you for joining us and welcome to this fireside chat. And maybe we can kickstart if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Sir, you took this company over in 2011-12, I think, sometime that, that's when the company, and, this company was that time, I think, if I'm not wrong, about around 60 crore sales. And it's been obviously a great journey, sales is up 10x. So, great to hear. What did you do? And if I look at your peer, your larger peer, which you were part of, obviously, earlier, you were the fourth person there, they have grown maybe 2.3x, which is, whereas you've grown 10x. So just wanted to understand, what have you done? Like, how did you manage to get this growth? So that will be great starting point, sir.
I think on 6th or 18th April, if I'm not mistaken, is when I complete 10 years. On 18th April 22 is when we complete 10 years of takeover of. And I can only tell you a couple of things. So when I took over the company in 2012, we had something like 2% market share, right? So I think the most important thing for me then, and which I continue to do even today, is to build a good team, right? So even in 2012, my job was to ensure that I got the right team with a very clear direction of what not to do and what to do. And I think I was lucky, to be very frank. I think we got the right company at the right time when the inflection point on travel, etc., was happening. And I think having worked with a great team is what has helped us. And we decided when we took over the company that with a 2% market share, we are an insignificant player in this industry. Right? So the journey was very clear that in the next 5 to 7 years, we have to become at least a double-digit market share company. Otherwise, you're an insignificant player, and it's like a fly on the wall. You can be swatted and be killed anytime with an insignificant market share. So the game was very clear to grow. And in that journey of growth, we decided that there are certain things which we will do. So one of the first things that we'll be a mass market brand. That was the first decision which we took in 2012, that Safari, we would not like it to be a premium or super premium brand. And the idea was to make good quality products, right? But not to sell it cheap, but to give a better value addition at the similar price as competition. I think the fourth thing we did is we did not go into an all-out war. So we picked our battles and we put disproportionate resource on every battle which we picked up. Whether it was a particular channel or whether it was a particular product strategy, but we ensured that on that particular channel or something, we were not spending less money than competition. And I think we did the battle by battle. And then, of course, after 2018-19 or 18 months ago is when COVID hit us. I think that was the very clear idea that in the next pre-COVID, at least that was the plan, that let's see that we can get to a 15 to 20% market share. And that is what we have been able to achieve.
So if you look at, and whatever little research I've done, so when you took over this company on 2011-12, or as you said, April 2012, one of the things that was happening in this industry was that soft luggage was coming in, hard luggage was actually on its way out. And and if I get it right, that year Safari actually showed a negative growth in top line and had a loss also. In fact, then if I look at the net working capital, it was really very, very high. So it's very interesting how you've kind of if you can just talk about a bit about the product, like how you change the product, what did you really do there to kind of take it to this level?
Product side, basically, Safari, when I took over the company, was still had a manufacturer's mindset, shall I say. So we were still making the old, what we call attache.
Right.
Because when you want to become a significant player, it means setting up your own office in China, having designers, etc. Right? Because at the end of the day, if you want to become a significant player, you can't do a copy paste and do a bad job about the copy paste and try to be big.
Right.
I think one of the first things we did with the design team, we concentrate on the quality. We work with the right vendors in China, even though it meant a higher cost, but we ensured that the product was trouble-free. And one of the ways we put pressure on the product was that we moved away from repair of a luggage to a free replacement. So even today in Safari, if you have a problem during the warranty period, we give you a free replacement on the spot, no questions asked. So that puts a lot of back-end pressure to ensure that the product quality, the fit and finish, everything is right. And to be ability to get good, what do you call, design and design delivery team based out of China and India both. And working with the right partners. The other thing I've noticed, if you work with the right partners, whether it is your vendor or whether it's an investment banker or whether it's a banker or anybody, as long as you get the right partner with a long-term journey, it does not matter.
Right. So, you also said that you picked the right battles and, you focused on those. So, for example, if I see the gross margins in, our business is slightly much, maybe about 900 bips lower than our peer. So, which meant probably that you're looking at a slightly more mass market. Is if that's the right way of looking at it. Was that like, so we can also talk about what those battles, maybe one or two examples of those battles that you picked in.
I can give you a battle like, so 2012-13 was when hypermarkets were coming up in a big way.
Right.
The Big Bazaar expansion, Reliance Retail, the DMarts also. So I said, this is the time to gain entry into all these chains. Otherwise, later on, you're not going to be able to even get into these chains, right? As they become big. At least today, there is a space for a third brand. So I think what we did that in a battle now, what I meant is supposing both my competitors had, let us say, 80 stock keeping units with, let us say, Big Bazaar. Right? And I approach Big Bazaar, okay, now I'm the new Safari, can you keep my products? He would say, okay, I will keep your product, but I will only give you 8 stock keeping SKUs. But at the same time, you have to keep a salesman to sell it. Now it is unviable at that time. Right? But we said, okay, this is where we will put disproportionate resources because we have to look at the end of the tunnel at the end of 5 years. So today we started with 8 stock keeping SKUs. We ensured that our fill rates were good. We never had more than 4 weeks inventory. We tried to see if we could work into that our advantage. Even though the revenue was small, but we ensured that we had the salesman and we had the best salesman among all the 3 people. Right. So the idea was that being a number 3 player, he actually has to work harder than the other 2 guys. Right. So we ensured we had the best guy in the industry on the shop floor selling your product. That is what I meant by battle, and that's how we picked it up. And so we said, okay, even though backpack may be an evolving category, but we can only do so much during so much period. So we said, okay, backpack is a battle, we'll fight it on a later date, but let's first get a disproportionate share from the luggage industry. So that's one example of what we did of the battles.
Right. So in terms of, you also talked about picking up the right people. And, if I look at, even employee cost of the company then and now, that has also gone quite a bit, almost in proportion to sales. So would you say now that for the next leg of growth, you have the right team in place and now from a people perspective, you won't necessarily have to kind of take it to that, to the same level as you have taken it in the past 10 years.
I'll answer this in two things.
Yeah.
So there are certain manpower costs which is directly related to what we say production and sales. So let us say, as your sales go up, and if you're producing in India and if you're producing more, your labor cost is going to go up. Right? So if tomorrow there are 100 Reliance retail shops which open, that means you have to put in 100 more salesmen in those shops. So there are certain manpower costs which is directly linked to revenue or production, which will keep going up as a cost. But there will be other, let us say, other team members. So if you have a head of HR, you're not going to need a head of HR if your revenue goes from 1 to 1.5x. I think from a team perspective, we have a good team today, which is well geared for the next level of growth.
Right. That's great. So coming to, again, the point that, consumer preferences obviously change. And one of the things, as we were discussing, maybe soft luggage became very important that time. Now it is about zippered hard luggage. In fact, in your last two annual reports, you've talked about zippered hard luggage as one of the key, things that's moving. So what are you seeing? If you can just talk us a bit about consumer tastes and preferences, how they are changing. What is your strategy on that?
I'll tell you on the product front, Sanjeev, and a lot of it was actually determined by what China could produce. Because, right, China is one of the places which used to have 80% of the, let's say in a way, manufacturing wise, 70 to 80% of the world manufacturing of luggage was done in China. So a lot of it was determined not by what was consumer preference, but what China could manufacture on a large scale. Right? But definitely today, and it has happened in the last 5-6 years, that, and the writing was on the wall, that the shift from soft to hard luggage is going to happen. Primary reason, of course, India was a hard luggage market, and now you're getting the best of both the worlds. You're getting lightweight, new materials, etc. Come out like polycarbonate, etc. So that shift worldwide also has taken place already. I think India, we were still lagging, like how we were lagging in soft luggage. So while India moved to soft luggage maybe 10, 12 years ago, the world had moved over 20 years ago. I think hard luggage is going to constitute close to 65 to 75% of the total market going ahead. We are already at 55.
Right. So, and what else? Backpack is one thing that was happening till the pandemic, I guess, hit. And clearly, obviously, backpack has been suffering because of pandemic. But again, what are you thinking on that? You think that the growth that was happening on backpacks would kind of resume, and you think that trend is continued, or has COVID changed anything according to you?
Sanjeev, I'll answer this. I'll break it up in two parts and try and answer it. So the first part where people have asked me was on the luggage. What do you think about travel and what will happen? And marriages are becoming small, etc. So I give the answer in my mind is very clear. See, even though marriages are becoming smaller and more intimate in India, because 60% of the luggage sold in India is still for marriage, right? Luggage is still part of the trousseau. So it's not going away. What we saw even during this pandemic, even during the lockdown, except during the severe lockdowns which happened during wave 1 and wave 2, the marriage demand for luggage did not go away. Right? The second part on luggage is that it's basic human nature to explore. Now, when you want to explore, you have to travel. Right? It's not that it's our basic human nature to travel. Our basic human nature is to explore new places. Is that going to go away? No. Same way, coming to backpacks, one of the primary reasons why backpack is sold is school, colleges. You look at all the peons, office boys, courier boys, they are all using backpacks. Yeah. So the basic question is the school going to open someday? The answer is yes. Are colleges going to open? Answer is yes. So the question is, when will the demand come back, and not if the demand will come back.
Sure. Fair point. So, but in terms of, you think from a taste and preferences perspective, there's no change is what you're saying. It's just
because the basic things have not changed.
Sure.
And I think today parents are more fed up and hoping for schools to open rather than the children.
Right. So again, just one last thing on the past versus now. One of the things of your strategy, if I'm right on that, was that you also focused on the CSD sales, which now for last couple of years seems to be now pretty muted, the growth over there. So is there a change there? And what's your thought on the whole
So
CSD?
CSD is not the last 2, 3 years, it's for the last 5 years.
Right.
Right. So it's like CSD was another battle which we picked up when we bought this company.
Yeah.
But CSD is very clear. I think the government of India only does not want to promote it as a channel.
Right.
After this one pension, one rank, because there is a lot of pilferage which happens from CSD even now.
Right.
Right? Because there is a lot of non-army personnel who actually go and buy stuff from CSD. So CSD for the last 5 years has become an insignificant channel for most of the players in the luggage industry.
Right.
And we are today in the industry level only. So we don't have a disproportionate share to our revenue of CSD.
Right. Okay. Coming to e-commerce, again, this has been there for some time, but clearly COVID has changed it a bit in terms of accelerated it a bit. But in terms of e-commerce, what do you see, sir? Is this an opportunity or is it a challenge?
It's both. I think every opportunity has a challenge, and every challenge also opens up a lot of opportunities, right? So e-com, we were the first mover again because we had no baggage, no channel conflict, and I think even today we are the number one player in that channel, right? And I think e-com is here to stay. But will it completely stop brick and mortar? I don't think so. Because still the pleasure of going out for a marriage shopping is also different. Right. So I don't think it will go, but yeah, e-commerce is here to stay. I think in terms of challenge, of course, the back end. So I remember the times 6, 7 years ago, instead of red, if a blue color went to a dealer, so kuch nahi hai yaar, you take 1% or samal le, abhi kya karenge? But you can't do that in e-commerce. So I think what you need in e-commerce is a very different mindset and a very robust backend.
Right.
Because Amazon or a Flipkart or somebody is not going to change his systems for you. So a very robust backend is the key to winning the battle in e-com.
Right. But also, what about potential competition because of e-commerce? Is because now it's much easier to distribute for some of the players, and you can at least choose your niche, and there are more people who can find their, as you said, they can pick their battle and play through e-commerce. It's become a bit easier. What's your thought on that, sir?
I think there will be players. In fact, right now the industry has gone through a heavy consolidation, right? Because of the entire unorganized sector virtually. So you will always have new players coming up, creating niches, etc. But I think the market is too big. I think we'll have that problem not now, but I think at least 3 to 4 years away. Because Amazon Basics also tried it, but they were unsuccessful.
Right.
With their house brand.
So, and if you were to hazard a guess in terms of next 4, 5 years, how big you think will e-commerce be as a part of the business?
My view is e-com is going to be here at least to 25 to 30% of the overall industry, 25% at least.
Right.
Because what has happened that, the earlier people were hesitant to order from e-com, but did not want to give their credit card details, right? When e-com started, I'm talking 8, 9 years ago. Then the cash on delivery started, which actually changed it. And I think in this last 18 months, there has been a clear mindset change and people are very happy shopping online. I think the boost which this COVID has given to e-com has been phenomenal. I think what they were expecting to do in 2027, maybe they've ended up doing in 2022.
That's true. Yeah. So coming to the competitive landscape, and if I were to break this up into various segments, so if you were to look at, let's say, where you are, where your economy segment, where you are, pretty strong, and we were to look at various, kind of segments, where do you think is now the competitive landscape? How is it looking like? What's your view on what will happen over next 2 years?
Look at the luggage industry. We are one of the least competitive industries, right? There is a 3-player game at the end of the day.
Correct.
And the chances of a very strong 4th or 5th player coming up is very very less, shall I say, right? A significant fourth or fifth player coming up. I think what has happened, particularly after the COVID, what has happened is that the bottom of the market has been growing faster.
Right.
Right? But I feel in the next 3 to 5 years, again, with international travel, with things getting normal, with vaccination rates going up, I think you'll find the mass and the premium end of the market also coming back with a vengeance, maybe 2 or 3 years from now. As
Right.
international travel opens up, I think you're going to find the premium end also going up.
Right.
I think that's one good opportunity for the next 2, 3 years.
Right. So the current discounting that while you are saying on one side that we have seen a bit of unorganized players getting hit, they today are it's become a 3-player game. But the kind of discounting that we are seeing is still pretty high. Is it because people are trying to clear out their inventories, or what is the thing that's happening?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think people definitely cleared up their inventory because we had a lot of stock at the beginning. And I think now everybody is worried that is this demand which is currently there sustainable? Is there a wave 3 which is going to come? Is it not going to come? The entire planning has become it's very difficult to plan today because everybody is worried. If you had asked me 45 days ago, everybody was talking about wave 3. Now it was a matter of time ki kab aayega.
Right.
But if you go out and talk to somebody in the last 5 days, he said, what wave 3? There is no wave 3. It will be a ripple.
Right.
So it's difficult for anybody to plan. Therefore, as long as the cake is small and with no certainty being there, I think you'll find some of this madness to go on for some time.
Right.
So I think once the demand stabilizes, you'll find
Right.
the madness coming down.
But you would think inventory has got pretty well corrected, right? Because even if I look at balance sheets of all you guys, I probably couldn't have been better than where it is today. Than
Yes.
so
The inventory has got cleared up. But
Right.
again, when we were caught napping with, again, not napping, but we were caught unawares when the wave 2 happened in April, May, June.
Right.
We just got out of that wave 2 only in June, then July, then August has been better, September has been good.
Right.
But it is just that, is it sustainable? That's what everybody asks us the same thing. And believe me, nobody in the industry has an answer today.
Sure. And one of the things, one theme that I'm seeing, common theme in both the annual reports of the 2 large players which is available, is wanting to move out of China as a supplier. And partly I guess, and this is probably now even more exaggerated given what is happening with China in terms of the logistics costs and etc. So again, what is your strategy on that? How are you thinking about it?
So I'll tell you, Sanjeev, is clear. Even 2 years ago, even pre-COVID,
Yeah.
the writing was on the wall that China is no longer going to be the supplier to the world for luggage. At least in our mind, it was clear. But it was a 2024 project. That by 2024 we should exit China, or China should come down to like 10-15% of our business. And therefore, we had already started expanding our capacities for hard luggage in India. So if you see hard luggage, we were only manufacturing in India. We have never imported a single piece from China. Just pre-COVID, we had started a vendor in Bangladesh also. Right? So we had already started making that move away from China, but it is with COVID and what is happening in the geopolitical situation, it has come on our head like as of today.
Right.
And I think the China problem for us is over come December.
Okay.
We would have moved our entire supply chain between Bangladesh and India.
Oh, wow. And even if you go back to the sales of, a year ago, pre-COVID, you don't think that's, you'll need China.
We cannot work with China, then you can only do what we call dharam ka kaam, because you can import and sell and not make any money.
Right. Right.
So China is out.
Right.
China is out, completely gone, finished. No option. So
Right.
believe me, supply chain and manufacturing or vendor development is the only thing which we have done in the last 12 months.
Right.
Our own capacity expansion of hard luggage.
Right. And
so a combination of both is ensuring that by December we would be out from China, would remain just like a 4-5% kind of our business.
Right. So your strategy has been slightly different from, again, the competitor, where they have set up an operation in Bangladesh. while you are using a vendor, any thoughts on that in terms of, if you change that, or this is good enough?
I think the question is not what is right or wrong. The question is what is the ability to implement.
Right.
If you don't have the ability to implement a new plant starting from scratch in Bangladesh, and when the demand is today,
Hmm.
see, there was always this debate, whether, so during COVID, if you see, Bangladesh has made a loss, right? Because you have the fixed expenses.
Yeah.
When it is the case of the vendor, I had no liability on my head.
Right.
So it can cut both ways.
Correct.
It can cut both. Before, if you see luggage industries up to 80s, we had 14 factories and 38,000 workmen. Right? And we all moved away, we can't take liability with trade unions and everything with 38,000 workmen. And we shut all those 14 factories.
Right.
And moved to outsourcing. I think the life has come back a full circle where we have to get back to manufacturing and do the entire vendor development. So that's another story for the next decade or so. And actually that will become the competitive advantage for the organized player.
Right. So also in terms of just trying to understand our geographical spread, are we stronger in some particular geographies, or we are similar across?
We are more or less similar.
Right.
The only place where we are weak would be the metros like a Bombay or a Chennai or a Bangalore, where organized retail and what we call high streets evolve much faster compared to the rest of the country.
Right. So so what you're saying is the others had a slightly more head start because of that.
That's right.
Right. Okay. So if I look at your, from a growth perspective, next kind of 5 years, no, I'm not talking next quarter, next year, no. But if I take a kind of a long-term view on this, we've grown much faster than the industry over last 10 years or 9 years. If I were to try and draw that now next 5 years, you think that's possible now, or you think that we've reached a saturation on market share?
Yeah, I can only tell you because from a DNA of the organization, from a DNA of an organization, we are still a growth. It's difficult to change that DNA after 10 years.
Right.
Right. But I'm not sure what will happen in the next 5 years. But the DNA of the organization is always geared towards growth.
Right. And you think that there are still some battles to be won, maybe newer battles, but
with COVID, you've got new battles to win now.
Right.
So like the entire backend, the supply chain, there's a huge opportunity if you can create today D2C brands, whether you can create, retail has become viable of a sudden with all the retail rentals falling. Right? So this is a perfect time actually. If someone can do it and invest the entire backend and all to build a premium brand, you can't get it better than that, than what situation you have today.
Right.
And again, school bags, there is opportunities there, Sanjeev. It's just the ability and how much can you do in every year.
Right.
So we can't do 10 things together at the same time. So we only pick up 2 or 3 battles every year. We are quite clear. We don't want to pick up more than that.
Right. I think so. So I'm trying, at least the endeavor is to grow obviously much faster than the industry, despite the fact that industry has got pretty consolidated now.
All I can say, we are as an organization, we see an opportunity, we will never let go of it.
Right. But how big is unorganized today? Is it, as you said, it's got decimated in this COVID, but is it still quite sizable?
I tell you, 2 things are happening. At least because last 1 month, I've traveled the length and breadth of the country and the markets. I've been walking the streets for the last 30 days to see actually what's happening. And interesting, at least my observations. One thing is for sure, in the luggage, unorganized sector is finished. That is for sure. Because the business model was to import from China under invoice and all that. वो सब खत्म हो गया with GST and with this freight. Because you can't cheat on the freight. You can cheat on many things, but you can't cheat on the freight, right? So China is out. China also, there are cost increase happening in China also. So that whole China model has become unviable. As a result, in the luggage industry, so there is no unorganized sector left.
Right.
But when you come to backpacks, the unorganized sector is still large.
Right.
And the bigger thing which is more worrying is, which does not happen in luggage, It does not happen in luggage. But it's happening in backpacks is where they are putting anybody's logo and selling it,
Right. Hmm.
which does not happen in luggage. So this is something which is very, I found it to be quite weird.
Hmm.
But backpack, definitely the unorganized sector is still big because they are manufacturing in India. It is a simple manufacturing like making what you call luggage covers or something earlier.
Hmm.
And they are putting what you call logos of the existing brands and just selling it
Wow.
on the streets.
Right.
I think that is one thing where as an industry we'll have to think and do something in the long run.
Right. So that's a harder battle to fight though, because as you said,
Yeah.
if you're manufacturing it here, then
But I'm surprised why they are not doing it in luggage.
Hmm.
Backpack, it's like across the board. But in luggage in the last 30, 35 years, I've never seen anybody having the audacity or the courage to put a VIP or a Safari or a Samsonite logo and try and sell the luggage.
Right.
But in backpacks, it is across.
And so then would you say that backpack unorganized is still larger than the organized?
Definitely. Definitely.
Hmm.
The unorganized is still big because it's manufactured in India. It is still like a cottage industry and is sold on the streets.
Right. Hmm.
Right. So if you go to Lajpat Nagar, if you go to Bada Bazar, Calcutta, if you go outside Dadar station or in Bombay, you
Hmm.
can see backpacks, but you'll not see luggage.
That's right.
जो earlier luggage रहता था,
Hmm.
and backpack used to be part of it.
Right.
So that's a very big shift which has happened.
Hmm. Right. And that's quite. So maybe a couple of minutes of what when you crisscross India, anything interesting, other, maybe not be just to do with luggage, but anything interesting that you noticed.
Yeah, so after a long time, I see a lot of family and children and also old people traveling.
Right.
Right after the first lockdown, when travel opened, you could see that the old people and the children were not there. But today, you see a lot of family travel. I think the fear of COVID has gone away to a large extent. The other thing which I definitely noticed, which is pertaining to my industry, at least I can't help it, is that when people have started the second leg of travel,
Hmm.
you can see that a lot of people have changed their luggages and not because it's a recent purchase.
Right. Hmm.
At least in 15% of the cases or 20%, I can make out that the guys have bought this luggage in the last 1 year.
Right.
Somehow, once they've started traveling again, they didn't want to use their
Hmm.
own luggage. All the airports are again full.
Right.
Bombay, Delhi, it's all walk these streets, it's back to normal.
That's true.
At
Yeah.
least it's back to normal.
Yeah. I guess Bombay is the least of in relatively, right, compared to most of the
Delhi,
cities.
I was in Delhi, Calcutta, it's all
Yeah.
the markets, whether it's everything is full.
Yeah.
It's full.
Right. So what about export opportunity from India? Given that we have a pretty large, domestic market, can India become an exporter?
It is not whether it can, it will become.
Right.
The question is of getting the critical mass and to get the capacity. Today, we don't have capacity to feed the local market. It's
Right.
difficult to export, but definitely markets like Middle East, Africa, Europe, where the shipping cost, and it's also depending on what's happening on the geopolitical thing. So
Hmm.
just to give you a sense, if you export from India to Europe, the custom duty in Europe is only 1%.
Right.
While if you get it from China, it's 11%.
Right.
So same as US, right? So it is going to happen. Thing is when do we gear up to be able to match that finesse, quality, and capacity?
Hmm. Right. Fair point. So, okay, in terms of growth, again, if I were to look at from a capital allocation perspective, so what would be your, are there, would you raise more? You raised equity recently, a small, very small, but you raised equity recently. But would you look at raising equity, or do it through debt or internal accruals? What is the whole? Is there a policy that you have in mind?
Right now we don't, but the ideal situation for any company is never to raise either debt or equity.
Right.
As long as you can fund yourself from internal accruals, I think I would be the happiest person alive. But I think today, looking at the cost of debt
Hmm.
and looking at the size of the organization, I think debt is the best option today
Right.
for the company.
Sure.
At least from supply view, I think debt is the best option today when you're getting money at 4.5 to 5.5% rate of interest per annum. It's virtually post-tax. It's virtually
Yeah.
free versus trying to raise too much of equity.
Right.
I think for the next 24 months at least, I don't think we have any plan to, because debt is available if we need it. Right now we don't need it, but if we need it, I think even if we have to borrow 50, 60 crores is not an issue.
Right. And given that this industry is pretty already pretty well, not that many organized players other than, so acquisition is not a big thing here unless you're looking at outside India brand.
So this industry it's got a very long tail. If you see in any country, anywhere in the world, you'll have only one or two organized players.
Right.
Normally there's Samsonite and one local player.
Right.
Or two local players. And then you have a long tail which is there, which is house brand or licensed brand or something. So the opportunity to acquire too many international or domestic is not there.
Right.
But we may look at it. If there's some opportunity comes up, we may look at it. But otherwise, right now, there is nothing.
Right. Before I hand over to Prerna, last question, and that's more a personal question. In terms of your, what drives you and what next? Would you think that, if someone were to come tomorrow and say that I'm offering you 5x the price, would you sell this company? Just trying to understand your thought process.
Okay, so I'll maybe try and answer it as straightforward as this. So I think what is driving me personally is that it's the fun of doing business. See, I was telling somebody, we are one of the rare companies. Otherwise, it's very difficult for anybody to name one company which has entered in the last 10 years against two entrenched players. One is the world number one and one was India's number one. And the fun is to le liya dono ka. I think that was the trip we were in. Otherwise, it's very rare in any industry where you have a very well established world number one and virtually a generic brand, which is India's number one around for the last 50 years. I think that has been the thrill. I think the emotional attachment to the company is pretty high currently. But I like the way one of the ex-owner who sold me Safari, he told me, Sudhir, it's good to be emotional, but never be an emotional fool.
Right.
It's good to be emotionally attached with the company, but he always said never be an emotional fool.
Right.
I leave it with that.
Although he sold it at the wrong time in a way, right? Because
the question was they had a lot of other issues between brothers, and he had lost 80% of his eyesight.
Right.
He had a genetic disorder, so they had no option.
Right. So one last thing on growth. Any adjacent categories you think that where growth can come from?
At least we're not thinking about any adjacent till we get our act together on the back end in manufacturing for the next 12 months.
Right.
Besides that, we will not look at anything right now. At least for the next 12 months, just put your head down and get your manufacturing set up and back end ready. That's it.
Sure.
Uske bigger, trying to do anything will again, screw up what is a good thing running today.
That's right. Sure, sir. Sir, Prerna, over to you, sir.
Yeah, Prerna.
And anybody has any questions, can you please put it in the chat so that we'll ask from there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So continuing on your comment on manufacturing and supply chain, could you just highlight what will be your focus for the next 10 months, 12 months, in terms of increasing your capacity or how you're focusing on building the supply chain?
So two things. On the manufacturing side at Halol, we are already by December, and as disclosed already, we will be 2x of what we used to be. And we are investing now heavily on the polypropylene side of the luggage because we earlier used to make only polycarbonate, and the price difference between both the raw material has become 1:3. It's good that we ordered the machines and all during this lockdown, right? So I think those kind of things will happen, and I think hopefully by December, Jan, I just hope we don't need more capacity, then we'll have to go for a new greenfield project, right?
Yeah.
So that the 2x of the capacity will take place by December on the manufacturing. On the supply chain, what we have realized now that you have a lot of good players like a delivery or express fees or something. So nowadays, most of our warehousing with WMS and racking and those kind of automated system, we are giving it out to a 3PL players.
Okay.
So that is what we realize. We are good at making luggage. We are not good at warehousing.
Okay.
So let's not try and do it. Let's give it to somebody who understands the system with Amazon or a Big Bazaar or a D-Mart or all these people, and just hand it over to them. So Bhiwandi warehouse last year we shifted, which is a huge facility. We are in the midst of changing our regional warehouse at Gurgaon also, and that really helps, during the big billion days, etc.
Okay. So largely warehousing and increasing manufacturing capacity.
Logistics, warehousing, slowly we are outsourcing and keep the entire
Okay.
data analytics and forecasting, etc. in-house.
Okay, that's important
Yeah.
to a very large extent. So, if I want to understand your product strategy as well as brand strategy in detail, you have one brand Safari which is leading your company, but you have a host of other smaller brands also which you acquired a few years back. What is your thought process on the smaller brands that you have, and what is your focus with respect to, especially target audience with respect to um, men, women, kids? If you could just help us understand your business model with respect to brand and product, would be great.
I'll tell you on the brand, basically for luggage and for the mass market backpacks, it will be Safari. We have a flanking brand Magnum, which we use sparingly, right? The other brands which we have, which is Genius and Genie, have got a huge amount of potential, but unfortunately, because of the closure of schools and colleges, that business was badly affected. But if you were to ask me where is the big potential going ahead, it is in Genius and Genie when the backpack market comes back, right? Because that is where the segmentation for women, for girls, and also based on age. So if you can go online and just check out the bags which are available under the brand Genie and Genius, you'll find that they are very different than what's available with anybody else.
Correct.
And I think as the school colleges open, I think those are the two brands where we can drive exponential growth in the next 4-5 years.
Okay. That's interesting. So, sir, how do you think is the market according to you in men, women, and kids, uh, and how it is growing with respect to size or growth rates, and which is giving you a better opportunity in future?
See, right now, nobody is doing the segmentation of men, women, and kids, unfortunately. The only place where we have done segmentation is backpack. See, there are backpack for kids and then there are backpack for everybody else, right? But that is where once the market comes back post-COVID, is where we can look at the segmentation based on gender, based on age, right? And based on maybe other criteria. But right now, when the backpack market has not come back, nobody is looking at it.
Correct.
But yes,
Correct.
that's a future opportunity where you can do this kind of segmentation based on gender and age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But can these gender focus as well as age focus, can it accelerate the industry growth rate as well?
I'm not sure it will accelerate the industry growth rate, but definitely it can stop the unorganized sector. As you get more niche and you have more number of brands, you will find the unorganized sector finding it difficult to replicate that.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you keep selling only onion and tomatoes or potatoes, then anybody can make it and give it.
Correct. Correct. Understood. And sir, with respect to premiumization, Safari today is a mass economy brand. What are your thoughts on premiumization? Whether you would want to launch another brand, or you take Safari as a premium, or you would not want to focus on that market for the next 2, 3, or 5 years because there's enough opportunity in the mass segment and economy segment. Your key thoughts on the same would.
Safari as a brand has missed the bus of premiumization or becoming premium, right? But I have to be premium for my current target audience. I cannot be a cheap brand for my current target audience. He has to have pride of ownership. Okay. So I don't want to confuse between premiumization and a premium brand. So Safari always will try and be more aspirational for its current audience or current target, right? So if you see recently, we've opened a shop at Delhi Airport in T3 of the main atrium. We just opened a month ago. So that investment in Safari will continue. But can Safari take on the premium or super premium as a brand? The answer is no. Right? That decision was taken 10 years ago when we bought the company. That Safari would not be a super premium or a premium brand. Now, is there an opportunity out there? Yes, there is an opportunity because you have only one player who has 90% market share. Only one brand which has 90% market share. But the thought process, the back end, the designers, the vendors, and the manufacturing capability has to be thought of first before we do the front end.
Correct.
Right? Like even the retail shop, because that has to be driven more by retail, it cannot be discussed. So the mindset, etc., it has to be more of a high margin and maybe not a high revenue business.
Correct.
So the day we are confident that we can do the back end part of it, and we have the other building blocks in place, that's the time we will look. But opportunity, yes, opportunity is there. Because you have one player with 90% market share, that means his market share can only go down.
Yeah, true that. But the other players also, the second, third brand is also not been able to challenge that premium
So
market
that
share.
does not happen
That's
because, like I told you, there is an organization mindset.
yeah.
So if you ask my salesman who goes to Daryaganj every day and sits there and has chai also in the saucer and tell him कि भाई अभी तो Delhi airport का दुकान भी चला, so that mindset is not going to happen, right?
Correct, sir. And sir, with respect to your distribution strategy, like where is the next leg of penetration that can happen? Is it tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 rural areas where we can see more opportunities and for growth on the next leg, or type of stores that can improve your penetration in current markets? And how do you plan to, increase your penetration going forward and your current distribution strategy?
I think, Prerna, currently the number of touch points which are going up in the rural area and all are driven more by today of Flipkart rather than even anybody else. We are surprised at the number of pin codes, etc., and the towns where they are servicing. So if you frankly were to ask me, the penetration is done by Flipkart and not by organized players. We still have a lot of gaps in distribution on certain high streets in major towns. I think slowly but steadily we are building on that.
Okay.
Right? Like I told you, Bombay now real estate for retail has become viable. So we have recently signed up a landmark store at Dadar, which will open up. Right? We just opened Delhi Airport. Because
Okay.
today real estate cost for retail particularly has come down. Then there were certain malls where we did not have presence.
Mhm.
Who would even give us space because he said we already have VIP, we already have Samsonite, abhi kya karne ka Safari, right? So those gaps are something which we will fill up for sure.
Okay. Any color that you can share on EBO strategy that you just spoken about, like how many stores
There
you
is
want
no
to
strategy
open?
right now. We are only looking at where we can fill in the blanks and where there is particularly things available which makes commercial sense. So we are not looking at EBO where we have no presence at Dadar or City of Bombay. If it's a commercial shop, we'll take it up. So let us say South City Mall or Select City or somewhere where normally we would not have got a shop, or our city or in orbit, let us say, right? Today there's availability and the cost is also reasonable. But it's
Okay.
a slow one. So we are not actively hunting, but as soon as we are getting opportunities, we are taking them wherever there is a gap and it is commercially bad.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of your margins between hypermarket, departmental stores, e-commerce, and MBO channels, uh, which is the most profitable channel as a company, and uh, how do we look forward a change in that strategy, if at all?
Okay, now what I can tell you on the margin front is there's no significant change or difference between most of the major channels.
Okay.
Yeah. So there
Okay,
is
fine.
no,
Understood. And sir, you've done a lot of cost reduction at the time of pandemic as a company. So could you highlight some of the cost reduction measures which have really been significant, and how sustainable are these costs going forward?
so the biggest cost which they removed was they did not give me any salary last year. It's not sustainable. That much I can tell you. I think, I think as an organization, and it's there in the balance sheet, right? I did not get any salary last. I think the board and I think every employee, and I think I take pride in that. So we were the only company in this industry which during lockdown did not shed a single job. We did not cut the salary of a single employee in my company. We did not renegade on a single contract, whether verbal or written. Most of our vendors were paid off their money on due dates or within a 30-day time lag. Every vendor who called up got an answer, got a schedule, and payments were made. Even during wave two, we did insurance. We took the entire COVID expense of anybody in the organization and his family members. We did double dose vaccination for the entire company, employees and family, free of cost, right? So I think and that is holding us in a lot of good stead and goodwill today. So the only cost, if you see in our manpower cost or other things, I think the good thing is as a growing company, we always had flab. That flab has gone.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And my
Understood.
salary no longer, my cut in salary is no longer sustainable.
Of course, sir. That should not be.
Yeah, so I think
Uh,
me and we took a moral decision at the time of the first lockdown. So if you see all the board members, nobody has got commission. I waived my entire salary, right? And we decided that whatever has to be done for the organization will, but we will not deduct a single naya paisa from any employee's money. And we stood
that's
by during wave one and also during wave two.
that's pretty commendable, sir. I mean, very nice. And so, last question from my end is on the operating levers that you would have to improve your margins as your as competitors in this industry have mid double digit margins. So what are the levers for you to improve your margins going forward, and uh, any color on that?
I don't have any color on the forward looking, but only I can tell you is that as an organization, we know where we are faltering and what are the levers to be done. So I think as the supply chain shift from China happens, Bangladesh, my capacity in India, my capacity in polypropylene luggage, okay, where because the difference today in the prices between 1:3. I think post that, it's a question of certain, how do you call, madness in the industry stopping, right? And a general price increase. I think a combination of these three and we are back to our margin. So certain things are internal, which the company is seized off and doing, right? Hopefully we should start seeing results in the near future. Because one thing is for sure in our growth, and that is another target which we have been given by our board. Also, let's start looking at market share of profits. And not only market share of top line.
Top line.
So that's a nice optical way of looking at things, because beyond the point, if you don't have margin or profit, then I don't know why we are doing the business. So I think that is a long-term goal. We were moving towards that if you see pre-COVID, right? But then COVID hit, and now at least we know what are the things which need to be done. There is a plan of action, and we've already started implementing that. Now, when we see the results of that, time will say.
Sure, sir. I'll pass on to Sanjeev sir now for any questions that would have come up. And
there are a couple of questions that have come up, so I'll just quickly ask those questions. Sir. One is, we've talked a bit about it. Safari is gaining market share year on year, and it was 18.2% in FY20. That's what it says here. I'm not sure whether that number is right, but what market share do we aspire to have in 2025?
100%. I think any aspiration below 100 would be low. But no, besides the point, I think we will never aim for a market share where it will make competition do anything irrational.
Right.
That's it.
That's a good way of putting it, sir. Yeah.
Right? We will never try and push market share, which will make anybody and put this industry in a doom.
Right. But you also talked just now about market share of profits, and is that a new way? Would that be the new way of looking at it?
No, this was a target given to me pre-COVID.
Right.
When in one of our board meetings,
Right.
where my optical lens was changed. Okay, enough of top line. Now you're correcting working capital also.
Right.
Now can we start looking at market share of profits also? So that is what will help you in the long run. But that happened pre-COVID, and then COVID happened.
Right.
So I'm not sure when in the next board meeting is going to come up. Sudhir, when can we start looking at market share of profits also?
So right now it is market share of loss that was there in COVID, but I guess you guys did much better than the competition. That market share has definitely gone up. So
I think somewhere we have to bring sanity. We have
Right.
to working capital to a large extent has got corrected.
yeah,
I think margin will be the next thing. The good part is that at least there is awareness and acceptance that yes, it is a problem. Normally problem comes कि there is no acceptance होने की नहीं ये problem है ही नहीं margin का तो. हम तो mass brand है तो हमारा margin यही रहेगा. So the good thing is that there is acceptance that yes, our margins are low. You won 50% of the battle out there.
right.
And then you start looking at, okay, what are the things which are in my control?
Yeah.
Which I can do. What are the external factors like shipping cost has gone up? I can't do shit.
That's right.
What can we do? It's not in my control.
Yeah.
But I can't get the cargo from China or Bangladesh by road or by something else, right?
Yeah.
If the oil prices have gone up, transport cost has gone up, there are certain things which are not in the control of the organization. Let us look at the things which are in my control. Let's put a timeline, let's put a plan, and then you just go out and execute it. That's it.
Sure. Last question, sir. Can you throw some light on the top management, the company, other than yourself? Obviously, everybody knows you. Can you just talk a bit about the
Vineet has
team?
been with me now for last 4-5 years, and I think he's one of the strong pillars of the organization. Then we have Pushkar Jain, who's the marketing head. Most of the channel heads have been in the industry longer than me, whether it is CSD, whether it's Indranil Roy for trade and e-com. There's Pramod Agarwal who handles Hyper. Then we have one Mr. Paritosh Sinha who handles the school bags business. We just got a guy from SL Propack who handles our manufacturing, Manoj Gorpade.
Right.
Then Sonali is there, who's ex-Times of India, who's our head of HR. Am I missed out anybody else, Vineet?
No, sir, it's fine.
So I think we have a great team in place.
Right. Great,
Hopefully
sir.
everything should go well. Thanks a lot.
So thank you very much, sir, for your time. It's a really great.
I know this is the first time I'm doing this, so I was not sure. But Prerna has been very persistent.
I'm glad, sir, that you ended up doing it. So it's great to hear you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sanjeev. Thanks, Prerna. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining in us with your. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.